souls entwined, an eternal couple by deity enshrined. Indelible link, one to the other, connected forever in life.
I often wondered, as I inscribed my immortality in the stone, whatever happened to the sailors from the Ankamoon? What were their stories prior to the day that deity influenced the weather and brought Zacharias and Estoliana to Estolia? Did any of those unlucky men live beyond the wreck? And if they did, what became of them? Or did the deities of Centrarth take as tribute all the souls on board the hapless cargo vessel? Chi, inscription in the Willowall Cave.
They rode the elevator to street level, and then walked half a block, crossed the street, and approached the massive Othello building.
On the 35th floor of the Othello building is Fawcett's, where we will be joining Zeb, Damien, Maximilian, and Nico for dinner,
Zeke said. After they entered the lobby, he stopped Lyre and said to her, his voice solemn,
Lyre, Brittany may choose not to come to Estolia. I would like to ask you to respect her privacy by not mentioning our discussion this evening. I think she needs to come to a decision before anyone else knows about the offer.
Lyre could sense this was important to him. She felt a warmth to be in his confidence.
Of course, Zeke, I appreciate your trust.
A few minutes later, they entered a private dining room. That morning, all she expected of the day was that her sister would marry Dwayne, and that the wedding would be an ordeal for her. Since then, she had been disowned, met several princes, was planning to travel to a foreign country, and was now dining with 5 attractive men. Only after they were served their main meal did Zeke explain the arrangements he had made.
Maximilian, I have asked Nico to spend the next 2 days wrapping up your work here in San Francisco. This will clear your schedule so you can fly home with me tomorrow.
Max set his silverware down and stared at Zeke in shock. He glanced at Lyre briefly before returning his attention to Zeke.
Uncle, is that a wise choice?
It is essential,
Zeke said, his voice suddenly steely. Everyone sat in silence, digesting the implications before Zeb said,
You might as well tell us how you have rearranged things for the rest of us.
Zeke's lips twitched as if suppressing a smile.
My exact plan?
He concurred.
I have arranged for the other jet to fly out as soon as possible. Nico will need to go to Los Angeles International Airport to catch his flight to Vancouver. The designate will meet him upon his arrival in Canada. I will give him the details. It will be somewhat inconvenient, but as far as I can tell, it is necessary.
What keeps the new pilot from flying to San Francisco?
Nico asked, irritated. Lyre was fascinated by the eddies and undercurrents in the room. Nico was annoyed, while Zeb was solemn and Zeke looked resolute.
With Benzerik married and working on his elder year, we had no choice. The new pilot has a few items of business he must take care of at LAX.
Zeke fixed him with a significant look when he added,
The spirit wishes it to be done in this manner.
The 2 men were silent for a long time, their eyes locked in a battle of wills, or so it seemed to Lyre. When Zeke spoke again, his voice was even more implacable.
You should plan to dress in a suit and tie, rather than wear your robes of office, since you will need to travel by commercial airline to Los Angeles.
Nico's lips tightened. This was the first time Lyre noticed interpersonal tensions amongst the 5 men. They were all alpha males. They would not get along well cooped together for long periods. Each was used to being in charge, and there were subtle power struggles, probably subconscious, that each man engaged in. Zeke was clearly the top dog in this setting. Perhaps it was age and seniority.
What about Rhea?
Nico asked.
If that situation goes the way I believe it will, Zer will realize that he wishes to spend time in Estolia, and they will travel with us tomorrow.
Zeb snorted.
It is far more likely he will want Rhea to declare her Estolian faith a fantasy.
Zeke looked at Zeb, his brow pleated in a frown.
Can you share the source of your animosity, Sebastiani?
It was Zeb's turn to frown before he lifted his chin.
I worry that you so blithely allowed Zer to place his soul within Rhea's keeping when he has...
He paused and glanced at Lyre before finishing his statement in their native language.
Betalen voor seks is een standaardpraktijk. Rhea verdient beter.
When Max said something in the same language, Liar thought she would be shut out of the discussion completely. Instead, Zeke held up a hand, commanding quiet. He nodded towards Liar and said,
Forgive us, my dear, for speaking Estolian, especially when we are all quite comfortably bilingual.
Zeke focused his attention on Zeb and said,
Zeb, I understand the source of your specific concern. I should like to ask you to do two things. The first is to examine your own heart. Determine if there are elements of jealousy in your animosity towards Zere. Have honest, open communication with yourself so you can get to the root of your emotional reaction to Zere marrying your sister. I believe he will treat her heart with the same tenderness she will instinctively use on his soul.
What is the second thing?
Zeb asked. His jaw was clenched and he looked remote and forbidding.
When her seclusion is finished, I would ask you to have a similarly frank conversation with Rhea, so you can understand her perspective and why she chose Zere when she knew his history in a most indisputable way, and how he approached intimacy before he met her. I believe that if you are open to her explanation, your heart will be eased.
Am I to travel with you tomorrow also?
Zeb changed the subject to ask.
Yes, I believe it is essential that you return to Estolia. Nico will need you and your parents would enjoy your visit.
I cannot go to Estolia at this time.
Damien said.
I have critical exams coming up.
He looked tormented, as if anticipating a decree coming his way that would be impossible to fulfill or deny. Zeke nodded.
I know, Damien. Your mother wishes you could come home sooner, but we both understand how important this training is for you.
Max spoke then.
What about Liar?
He looked belligerent, as if he would resist any decree that did not include her.
She is coming with us. She will be a great help for Rhea, or Rhea will be a great help for her. I am not sure which way it really goes.
Zeke said.
In any case, we will be quite the group returning to Estolia. Myself, Liar, Rhea, Zere, Maximilian, and Zeb.
I don't have to go if it isn't convenient.
Liar said.
You really aren't responsible for my troubles.
She added, looking at Max. He shook his head.
I meant, Liar, that I will not leave without you.
He smiled at her as they approached the entrance. He smiled at her.
It is settled then.
Zeke said.
Nico, you and I will return to Zere's apartment in the morning and we will let him know of our decision. For tonight it is probably best if Nico and Max stay with you, Zeb. Liar can stay with me.
You don't mind?
Liar asked.
No, my dear.
Zeke said.
I would be most pleased to have you remain with me. I shall feel less homesick for my children and my wife.